Welcome to the Specialty Cropcast on Pomes and Stones. Join us for real conversations with farmers, agribusiness owners, and industry experts as we dive into farming, products, and the business of agriculture, all from the people who know it best.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We are here again for episode 20.
20
big ones.
We're back in our...
That's crazy. We're back in the
secret room.
The secret studio.
the always
the
moving.
way better studio than our
Nishino Studios, yes. The way better. If it looks a little different, that is because, again, we are at the
Grand Traverse Resort.
We're at the Grand Traverse Resort and Spa at the Northwest Orchard and Vineyard Show
Michigan.
here.
Northwest Michigan.
Sorry, Northwest Michigan Orchard and Vineyard Show. Big thanks to our sponsor, Nishino. Look, if you're into specialty crops, you know you need products that are a game changer. That's Nishino's focus. They're all about ingenuity. They do hard research and development to bring you innovative chemistries that work against tough pests. All right, so as always, backward hat Steve.
There you are.
Forward hat Steve today. Dressed up
Professional.
nice. Hoodie Zach in the corner. And our guest in studio today, Nick Nadai. Thank you so much for coming in.
You bet. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
So we always talk with growers, industry experts, and we're kind of starting to venture out a little bit into maybe learn a little bit more about marketing and other programs that help growers be successful. And I think you probably are the first person who doesn't come from their own farm, I guess. So we chat a little bit about how you kind of had an interesting work your way into where you're at now. So introduce yourself and give us a little bit about you.
Sure. Yeah. Well, like you said, Nick Nadai with MACMA. Been doing this MACMA thing for 5 years. I got hired on in 2020. I guess we'll go back to the beginning, so to speak, with my career in ag. Grew up in the city, right outside of Detroit, actually, a town called Royal Oak, which used to be small. Now it's not so much that way. But anyway, always liked ag, always liked farming. Didn't think I'd really get into it because I was a city kid, right? Who's going to give me a shot in the farm? So anyway, I went to school. I went to Grand Valley, actually. And at that time, I thought I'd pursue another interest of mine, which was going to be a conservation officer. I went to school for criminal justice, got that degree. Thought, all right, I'll go this direction.
That would have been awesome.
Would have been. I got about halfway through and thought, this isn't for me. And it worked out well because at the same time, actually, Grand Valley and Allendale, a lot more rural then than it is now. So I actually did get a couple jobs on some farms while I was out there. And I thought, man, this farming thing's pretty cool. I kind of want to follow this direction. So I did anyway. And after that, graduated the next day. Literally the next day, I was on a plane out west to work in a custom combine crew out there. We combined, in the summer it was wheat, and then in the fall it was corn, beans, sunflowers, canola.
Driving the big stuff, huh?
Big stuff. It was fun.
Wow.
It was fun.
Big equipment's always fun.
Yeah, that was great. But anyway, did that for a couple of years, missed home, came home, worked in the seed fertilizer world for a while. Then sold equipment for a while, and then after selling equipment, I came on this MACMA thing and been here ever since.
Nice. So what does MACMA actually do at a high level for growers?
Well, MACMA is it's a grower-based marketing co-op, and we are made up of grower members. In order for us to exist, we have to have better than half of the growers are members in the state, and more than half of the production has to be signed up through our membership in the state for us to exist. A big reason we came to be, which was back in I want to say it was the mid-'60s is when MACMA got started. And at that point, the founders wanted there to be an avenue for growers to obtain fair market value for their crops. You guys know how it goes in ag. You raise a crop, you hope the price is good when it comes time to sell it. If it is, great. If it's not, sorry, that's what it is, So that's kind of the function of MACMA. We've since then taken on a handful of other facets. But yeah, that's by and large a big part of why we got started and what led us to kind of where we are now.
So what crops does MACMA represent?
Right now it's apples and asparagus. Geez, over the years it's been a handful of things. I don't remember. At one point in time we did cherries, we did feeder pigs even. I don't know, it's probably 4 or 5 other crops. I don't even dare guess what they were, but they've kind of come and went. But it's been apples and asparagus the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Can you say what MACMA stands for just
Yeah.
the listeners that might not know?
So MACMA, Michigan Agricultural Cooperative Marketing Association. Sometimes I got to think through that one because I don't always know, but I'm pretty that's what it is.
What's your role at MACMA?
Kind of two roles for me because of both the apples and asparagus. I got kind of 1 foot in each. For the asparagus side, I'm the general manager, quote unquote, of that division. So I kind of handle all of the behind the scenes stuff with government purchases, committee meetings, what have you. And on the apple side, we have a sales desk that we run for marketing crops in state and out of state. I handle a lot of that, and then I guess field rep too. So I'll get out and see the growers and have that kind of fun.
Can I go back to the crops you guys cover? Why do you guys drop some, keep some?
It's not really up to us as an organization that gets what it's been. It comes down to just what the industry has dictated. So growers have decided, whatever year in, year out, that those industries, maybe it wasn't viable because they didn't maybe have the amount of buyers maybe they once had. So if you right now for the apple thing, it's kind of nice because we have on the process level, a handful of buyers, but you see in these other commodities, well, you go from 5 or 6 buyers down to 1 or 2, and it's like, all right, well, you don't really stand much chance having any kind of bargaining power when you only got a couple players in the game.
Right.
I estimate that's what it is. Those crops got dropped long before I came around, so
Okay.
my thought is it's more of an estimation. We can dig into the history books if you want, but that's about what I got.
No, I was just curious. Yeah.
That's a good question, Steve. So how would you describe the current processing apple market? So we had in the Ridge area, they got hit with some hail, and what I'm imagining is that pushed a lot of fresh apples that could pass for processing into that market. So how does that affect that market?
Yeah, well, that's a facet of the market right now. I guess I'll backtrack a little bit. I think this year, this 25 crop, we all kind of know that crop it's not a full crop. It's lighter than what we initially thought going into it. Part of it is because of that hail. That hail come through, and that where that kind of wiped out it was a lot of honey. It's a lot of fresh apples, obviously. That stings a little bit. The good news there, I think, is because the crop was lighter and because of the timing of that hail, that fruit was able to recover really pretty well and got used without much issue in the process market. And it's tucked away in storage and holding up pretty well, and will get used in the process market. Had we had a year where there was 32 million bushels out there, I don't know that would have been the case. But because we're looking at, I think probably a 24, 25 million bushel crop, those apples will get used, and there'll be a processor out there happy to use them.
Happy to take them. What pressures are growers facing that consumers never see?
That's a tough one. The first one that jumps out at me is labor, and obviously we're at a point where that might be getting a little bit better. But I think at the consumer level, and it's not the consumer's fault, it's not a world they live in, but they just don't know the ins and outs of what it takes to get that apple picked and stored and packed and all that goes into it. The labor's been expensive. It's been great, to be able to have that apple picked when you want it picked, how you want it picked. I mean, the folks doing it are outstanding, but the cost tied up in that has been a big challenge. And then another one, I guess, as I'm talking, is this whole conversation about what do we plant. There's been countless number of new varieties that have come to the marketplace. Growers have tried them, had pretty good success with raising them and the varieties, what the taste and the crunch and the color and whatever else you want to look at. And it sounds like it's promising, but then, there's just not anywhere to necessarily move them. It's kind of got to put the cart ahead of the horse situation. The buyers want volume. It's tough for a grower to produce a lot of volume at once. They don't want to stick their head out too far. And, I'm not going to dedicate, 100 acres here or whatever. I'd start taking baby steps. And, we see it in Ambrosia, Evercrisp, a few others. It's like good apples, but when they get to the marketplace and the consumers too, they don't necessarily know what to look for. They're used to going to the store and seeing the honeys and the galas and the Fujis. So that's what I like and that's what I know. So I'm going to grab some of those. Oh, there's new variety out there. Whatever. Maybe if it's cheap, I'll try it.
Well, and it's all the club apples too, right? My wife just brought home from Pennsylvania. What the heck are those? I don't know. It's a newer club apple. And she's like, look this up. Can we plant this? And it's like, nope, we can't. You got to buy in. But I don't even think you can do it out of state.
You can't buy in.
Right.
You can't pay the royalties.
And it's like those little apples out in Washington, right? Like, I don't know. We talked about these a little bit, I think. But those would be so sweet as like a little caramel apple for kids.
Yeah, like
we
a
can't
cake
grow
pop.
them. Yeah. I mean, caramel apples
healthy cake pop?
Dude. But you can't buy into it. You can't get them. You know, it's just kind of like, well, shoot, we're stuck planting.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, too.
Which honeys, right?
Well,
that's the answer in the end, I think.
So you talk to people and they all say honeys. It's like everyone has honeys, and then you ask, we asked some people we were starting to plant. Said, what should we be looking for? And they say, well, honeys.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, everyone's got honeys. You'd like to do something new, but they're like, no. Most people just want.
But not
honeys.
everybody can grow a great honey.
It's the difference. We do a nice job up here with our cool nights and the sunny fall days.
Well, and that's another thing too about consumers. They don't know how hard it is to raise a honey or store a honey. That apple's such a challenge a lot of times to get the bitter pit and all that other stuff. It's man, if you're a grower,
internal browning, right?
Yeah, the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
That's always an uphill battle, I think, and one maybe you'll never get a whole bunch of headway on. But that's how it goes.
I know. And right, it's the consumer, and how do they switch, and when do they switch someday? Because probably they will switch from the honeys, or but when and what causes that?
And I think sometimes too, at least as I understand it, and I don't live in the fresh world, being a process guy, but as has been told to me, the grocery store, it's not necessarily in their best interest to they don't really want another SKU, they don't want another something on the shelf. It's more work for them. It's more something else to manage, and you can't blame them. I guess you want to take the easiest route that you can sometimes. So there's always, a challenge there. But yeah, all going back to the fact the consumer, it's not their world. They just don't live in it. And, it's not anything that they're doing per se. It's just the fact that they just go to the grocery store, see what's there, grab it, and off they go. They just don't have to put a lot of thought into, where it comes from or how it got there.
Yeah, so it's funny. Some people care a lot, and other people are just like, oh,
yep,
you're putting an apple in the cart every time you go to buy her.
Yep.
Any store, just because that's what you do. You always have a couple at home. So that's pretty interesting. For the listeners who maybe aren't as familiar, will you explain quickly how the processing apples differ from fresh market when it comes to the pricing and the risk that you run growing that fruit?
Yeah, and I can't speak all that well to the fresh market just because I'm not that well versed in all the happenings there. But the fresh market thing, at least as of late, there's more of a push to supply the big buyers with apples 12 months out of the year. That's good for the buyers. They like to make one phone call and say, hey, need X amount of trucks of this variety or loads, however they handle it. They do not want to be in a spot where it gets to be, say it's April or May and that supply runs out. They got to find a new supplier, so on and so forth. It's more steps for them. So the growers then at that point are having to sit on apples for a longer period of time than what they'd like. It gets more expensive. That fruit gets more expensive in storage because of the cost of running, CA and all that. And you don't always know what that apple's going to bring you. That fresh price kind of ebbs and flows, and then the pack out's another conversation. How are they going to pack out? So there's a lot of unknowns in that fresh world, and those unknowns I think get magnified the longer that apple sits there in storage. Whereas on the process side, you pretty well know going into it what that apple's going to bring you. I mean, you have a cost of what that's going to what the buyer's going to pay, and then oftentimes there's not really a grade associated with the process market, so you don't have to worry about packouts or anything like that. You have X amount of apples at X price, and then you get paid 30 or 60 days, or whatever it is afterwards, and then off you go. So I think there's value in that, and the fresh market's it's
an animal. It's a bear.
It's hard to know. I guess you just don't ever know what's coming sometimes, and so I think we've seen that. We've seen that. There's apples that go in storage, and the growers like, gosh, I don't really know how they're gonna. How much longer we got on these things? So let's say, well, we're not certain about them in the fresh market, so let's just divert them process, and that ends up being a good avenue. But yeah, by and large, I think fresh versus process. There's the growers certainly appreciate the value of knowing. Hey, we can get rid of it, this price, know what's coming to us instead of waiting around and hoping things get better. Maybe they do, maybe they don't.
I feel like you can also use it as a tool to kind of gut check your fresh buyer too. You can get rid of some Honeycrisp to a processor and just see where they're at on it potentially. It is amazing though how many honeys don't make it into the box.
Yeah.
It's like when we had our little farm, I think we talked about it before. Like we had our young trees, we were just like we weren't growing them, so we were giving them plenty of nitrogen, not enough calcium, and so. But when the opportunity presented itself that there were some people looking for more honeys, we said, well, we had plenty of good ones, we thought. So we went through and we thought we had at least a semi-load, and it ended up being like 30, 40 boxes or something. And it's just like, wow, there's a lot that even looks good, but the guys going through, Zach's guys were helping train our newer guys. They're like, that's not good. I said, why? You go see that little Nick?
Yep.
I was like, God, that's frustrating.
And the problem with a lot of on the honeys in particular, obviously send them fresh. That's where you want to be with them. If they don't make that fresh grade, it's pretty much a juice apple. They can't sauce that, or they can't really slice that. So there's not a, you'd love for that. You'd love for somehow somewhere that apple to get utilized somewhere in between juice and fresh if it's not 100% clean for the fresh market, and we're just not there yet. So. Juice price obviously is kind of the lowest rung on the ladder, and you don't want to have to settle for that if it doesn't make fresh grade. But that's usually how you got to play that card,
right? So the apple I was talking about from Pennsylvania is a wild twist. It's a mix between a honey and a pink lady.
A wild twist.
It's really good.
Andrew, never heard of that one.
Yeah,
but there's always apples.
I know. I know. There's so many.
They're just trying the next thing, just trying to smoke the next Honeycrisp and be out front with it.
Yep.
What trends are you watching heading into the next couple of years here?
This year, this 25 crop and the 24 crop too, that I think put the industry in a pretty good spot in terms of supply. It's largely because of Mother Nature, and I am a little bit curious, I guess I'll say, of what is going to happen when the stars align here. When that year is, I don't know, but I mean, if you look at 20, 21, 22, 23, in there was pretty big crop here. So Mother Nature really didn't hurt us too bad in terms of frost or anything like that. And, a lot of trees have gotten planted since then. A lot of the trees that we haven't seen crop yet. So, I'm kind of watching this trend from the 5-year window and thinking, with what's out there and what's coming, we're going to see ourselves here in an oversupply situation probably, certainly again. It's just a matter of time. So, while these past years have been really good because we haven't had, 32 million bushel or whatever, I'm anticipating that year's coming, and I'm just going to be kind of curious on what that number is that Michigan, people say, oh, Michigan can produce 32 million or 33 million, Now I don't really even know if anyone knows what Michigan can produce because we've had pretty variable years, and the plantings, they've slowed here the past couple of years, I guess, but 2020, 21, 22, back then the plantings are still going pretty strong, and that's kind of something I'll be curious to see, what happens.
I've heard some grumblings about Washington and their apple market and crops, and
Yep.
Can you dive into that a little bit? What have you heard?
Washington in particular, obviously big crop, every year big crop, they just don't have the challenges that we have here, and we all know that. This year, I think that crop got smaller. Last I talked to a contact out there earlier this week, as a matter of fact, I think he said the updated numbers for Washington is 132 million packed units. That number's down. I think it was 146. They cut that back to 136 in season, and now it's down to 132 or 131 maybe. It got hot out there, and so the Honeycrisp in particular, and they saw the same trend I think in Galus too, and even in Fuji, they just weren't coloring. So that was a part of that reason. Because of that heat, we've seen that apples really are coming out of storage. So pack outs aren't great, and that's, I think, part of that whole equation. Where's that all going to fall? But by and large, I'd say that the Washington thing still, just always a boatload of apples. It's just not quite as rosy, I think, as they thought here going into it.
Okay. Thanks.
But they still have so much out there that doesn't really open an opportunity for us to get more Michigan fruit out there, or does it because our fruit's more red and we might have better stuff? But I imagine they have so much volume that that doesn't give us a better opportunity to move our stuff.
I would say generally we probably don't see too many apples from the east heading west across the Mississippi. I mean, yeah, a lot of apples west come this way, but yeah, I mean, if you figure they raise 130 million, I mean, Michigan's 30, call it 32, New York 32, probably somewhere in there, Pennsylvania, I don't know, 13 million. I mean, they
add it all up and we're still short.
Exactly. It's done, not even close. Not even close.
What's one thing apple growers should be doing right now to protect their operations?
On the MACMA side, it's never our position to tell a grower what to do. You know, we can offer advice, suggestions, whatever. But I'm of the opinion that on these years right now, when there's maybe not as many apples to go around, or at least fewer apples than what we're used to, I think diversity in markets is a good thing. We've got, 5, 6 different process outlets in the state, and I'm not suggesting that you should not make good on your commitments, but if you can take a year like this when maybe there's other processors that are hungry, maybe it's a good idea to consider, looking at somebody new. Say, hey, haven't worked with you in the past. Is that something you want to do now? Because the processors they're hungry and they're looking. Maybe it's a good point to do that if you can. Because like I alluded to, like we talked before, we're going to get to a point here eventually where you're going to have, 30-some million bushel again, and the processors aren't going to be taking on any new growers or whatever the case is, and you have to go through all that, and that's no fun. So, the more feet you can have in different doors right now, I think is a good thing. But again, MACMA, we can suggest or we can offer, ideas, but at the end of the day, growers know best. It's their crop, and we can't tell them necessarily what to do with it.
So apples are obviously a huge part of Michigan ag, but they're not the only crop that you're involved with, which something that I was looking forward to hearing about was asparagus, because I don't think a lot of people think much about how asparagus is grown or what that world looks like. So tell us a little bit about it.
Asparagus is different to me anyway. I kind of came into this MACMA thing. I was fairly green on apples, I knew a little bit about apples. I knew nothing. I mean nothing about asparagus. And so I was like, they approached me about it. I was like, gosh, are you sure you guys want to do that? But whatever. So anyway, we're into it, and it's great. Such a unique crop. Asparagus isn't particularly unique because it's all hand harvested, just like apples, but it grows so fast. I don't know if you guys ever seen it, but you really have to see it to appreciate it. These guys, all H2A, they're on carts. It's 5-man carts, and they're just buzzing through these fields, and it's all hand snap. So they're just going as fast as they can. Their hands are just working, and they snap it. It's all got to be that, certain length, certain diameter to be usable. If not, they got to, think at half a second at a time or, quarter of a second. Can we use it? Can we not? And they're just buzzing through. But it's unique because, it's not uncommon to have to, go through, and by the time you pick a field, got to go through and pick it again because it grows so fast.
Really?
In middle of May or whatever, if it's sunny and hot, you always got to be. Apples, fruit in general, it's kind of nice because if we don't get to pick these apples today, well, they'll be here tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not the way it is for asparagus. You got to be on it like now, because if it gets too big, you can't market it anymore. The fresh market wants asparagus that is, 9 to 11 inches or so, and if it's taller than that, they don't want it. The process. If you're raising for process or picking for process, it's got to be 7.5 inches. If it gets bigger than 9 inches, they don't want it. 10 inches, they don't want it. So you really got to be on it. So it's interesting. It's neat to watch. I feel like it's fun because it's, to me anyway, being as green as I was, there's so much to learn. But that community's great, as the apple side is too, but they've really caught me up to speed. Very, very helpful guys. The committee, MACMA, the way we operate is we operate at kind of the guidance of committees, and both committees for apple and asparagus have been really instrumental in how I've learned. But as green as I was in asparagus, those guys really caught me up to speed pretty quick. It's fun to work with them.
So what kind of markets do they go through, I guess? How does that work to sell it?
Well, there again, too, you got two outlets. You got a fresh and you got a process. And the fresh, usually that commands a little better money, so growers try to go that direction when they can. The hang up with that is, it gets slugged up pretty quick. And that's why we're fortunate in Michigan with a lot of crops to have the processing avenues that we've got. Because if you take that fresh opportunity, and there's you and the neighbor and every other grower in the area wants to go that direction too. Well, all of a sudden, there's a lot of asparagus shows up on the doorstep and it's like, all right, well, we can't do anything with this yet, so go find somewhere else.
No more.
And to the processing world, it's like, yeah, okay, we'll keep these, we'll send process. And by the time you fill that process avenue, well, then the fresh guys open back up again. So it really is an awesome give and take, and that keeps the market really quite healthy. When everything's operating as it should and yields aren't too overloading or whatever. But by and large, it's a really good thing to have those different avenues. In years past, and I guess this year and last year we saw it, but again here in this year we're seeing some optimism. I think in the asparagus thing, it was tough previously because we really were feeling a lot of pressure, import pressure from Peru, from Mexico. And that was tough to navigate. But since the 24 season must have been, that has kind of faded a little bit, and that's opened up a lot of opportunities here for us domestically. So it's been a really good thing.
This shows how much I know about asparagus, but is there different varieties?
Yes, there's certainly different varieties.
Great question.
I would, it's interesting because as many different varieties as there are, I would dare say, and I think this actually comes from data. There was a study done not long ago. I want to say somewhere between 92 and 94% of the asparagus in Michigan is one variety,
Gotcha.
Millennium.
Okay.
It yields well. It just bodes well in terms of head size, I think, and disease resistance, and the list goes on. And that's a question for extension or someone much smarter than me. But I think that with where we are with Millennium, it's everybody's favorite. There's Pacific Challenger's one. I don't know. There's a handful of other newish ones coming out. Millennium does a pretty good job of resisting purple spot, which is something that it's bacteria, whatever comes in it, whenever it gets cold and wet, and that asparagus will essentially turn purple. There'll be purple lesions on that spear, and really it's fine to eat, it's fine to use, but consumers,
Right.
What's sounds a lot like
Just
Bitter
like
Pit.
honey
Right.
crisp, yeah.
It sounds like Bitter Pit.
That's about it. And you're thinking, now what? But fortunately, we can use that, and they're in the process world to really bail. And this past year, we had a whole week when it was, it was probably 40 degrees occasionally there, and it was like, purple spot everywhere. So there's a whole week of time that the fresh market wouldn't take asparagus. So process market stepped up. The can side in particular, the canner can use it, and that was great, But yeah, there's one variety, or there's a lot of varieties. One, Millennium being the one that we are familiar with, and will continue to plant for the time being.
What's the grower size makeup? I guess what does it look like? Are there a lot of really large growers, or is it a bunch of mom and pops that are doing this and that?
It's a mix. And the asparagus thing, if I had to just shoot from the hip, I bet you there's probably in Michigan. Commercially, I'd say there's in the neighborhood of 100 growers. So it's not huge by any means. There are bigger players, there are smaller players. Just like anything else, on the fruit side you see it too. But what I think is unique about the asparagus side, and I guess it's not unique to asparagus, but big, small, whatever. Everybody generally plays pretty well with everybody else. I think a lot of that has come from industry consolidation. When I first got hired onto this asparagus side, the guy who I was taking over for, he's really knowledgeable about asparagus and done this 10 years prior. One of the first things he said to me was, I don't know that this industry will be here in 3 or 4 years, or 2 or 3 years. And I'm thinking, oh, geez, A, it's like surprising, and B, it's like, man, what does this mean for job security, right? Like, what am I getting myself into, So that
Can I transfer to a different division?
It was like, gosh, kind of eye-opening. Like, all right, well, I guess we'll ride this thing as far as we can. But yeah, that just goes to show that industry really, due to the import pressure from Peru and a handful of labor being another one. Growers had just gotten out of it really, pretty steadily there for a while. So that has forced the industry to really kind of consolidate. And I think that's one of the good things that kind of comes out of consolidation is that you just, you see how dire maybe it was or whatever. And I think the industry cooperates a lot better knowing that, everyone's better off if they work together on stuff. And like we're seeing now, we're kind of trying to, doing a decent job, pretty good job of getting out of this thing. And there are certainly brighter days that we're in right now. So, yeah.
What makes Michigan a great place to grow asparagus?
The lake. I mean, that's a big part of it.
Lakes.
Yeah, over there, and I bet you probably 95% of asparagus is in the state is grown in Oceana County. I mean, it's kind of the sweet spot because of that dirt. But there again, too, it's the processing side. Washington had a really good asparagus industry too. New Jersey had a really good asparagus industry. I don't know if New Jersey do anything of any volume anymore. Washington is doing some volume, but they only have one processor that I'm aware of, and it's a deal similar to like what I don't even know if we have anymore. It's like the Schwann's truck. It's just, a freezer in the back, and they just go around. I think that's all they have. So, really why Michigan at this point anyway is the last frontier, so to speak, for asparagus is because we have that healthy balance between fresh and processed. The guys in Washington, I mean, they'll raise it and they'll send it fresh. When the fresh thing gets full, that asparagus keeps growing. They just mow it down and, start back over kind of thing just because they don't have anywhere to go. So that's what killed it out there. That's what killed it out in New Jersey too. So that's why we're fortunate here to be able to continue to do what we do.
Nice.
What are the biggest challenges that asparagus growers face? Usually when we talk about a crop like cherries or apples, the market is always the first thing that kind of comes to mind for challenges. But from what you've said today, it kind of seems like that's not the case. It's right now it's in a decent, it's in a good spot at the moment. So is there like a pest or, a disease that it's like we talk about fire blight, scab, leaf spot. Like when you think of those crops, you have those big pests that pop right out. What is it?
It's purple spot. That's one, which you can't do much about that. That's just a weather thing. Asparagus beetle, you can spray for that. That really hasn't been too much of a hang up. Still at this point, and like we talked earlier, labor, that's gotten better. So I think there's some optimism there. It has been imports, but that's kind of fading. So that's why I feel like asparagus, it's some of the best years that I think, we've seen. I've had growers tell me this is the brightest future asparagus has seen in, 15, 20 years. So that's really encouraging. The thing about the imports, Peru in particular, all that asparagus, of course, was raised in the desert. And they tried to really capitalize on our November and December season. They want to send asparagus over here for Thanksgiving dinners, Christmas dinners, all that stuff. So they want to make sure that that's their number one, at least in terms of the U.S., that's the number one moneymaker. Unfortunately, the other side of that is that they crop twice a year just because of the climate. So they turn that water back on, and their second crop comes the same as ours does. 6 months from November, December is May and June. So historically, we've always had to fight their second crop. But because of a handful of things, tariffs, I think being one of them, those growers in Peru are looking for, actually money on what they're raising. Years ago, they just load it up in a boat, get it out of here, don't bring it back, don't care what it gets, I just want to be done with it. So now I think that they're kind of draw a line in the sand saying, hey, we actually need to make some money for this stuff. So that's helped. And you hear conversation about them looking at other crops too that are maybe a little more profitable. Blueberries is one. Avocado is one. Down in Mexico, even too, they're talking about agave, tequila, I'm guessing. I don't know. But anyway, so it seems like it's falling out of favor. And in addition to that, I guess, at least what I'm hearing, again, I don't live in the fresh world, but some of these fresh guys have told me that, now that we don't have as much imported asparagus in the grocery store, and it's been a little bit more domestic, the consumers are like, wow, this is really good. It's anything comes over from, whether, I guess Peru, it gets picked, it's on a boat for a week or whatever, who knows how long it is. It's amazing it stays as fresh as it does by the time it gets here because it's a long way from the field. And but yeah, it's usually spindly, it's fibrous, and now not having as much of that around, the domestic stuff, it's obviously, fresher. And I was one too, the first time I was driving around with my predecessor, I didn't know much about anything about asparagus. And we go up to a field and he snaps one off and gives it to me. And I was like, man, this is actually, all I probably had before that was stuff from Peru or Mexico. I was like, yeah, that's not great, honestly. But, now it's like, yeah, this is pretty good. So, because of all these factors, I feel like, the challenges, we still have challenges, always do, but there's fewer challenges, I think, staring us in the face right now as what we're used to. So we're going to take it and run with it and see how far we can go.
Awesome.
Can you put asparagus in a cooler like we do with apples and store it for an extended period of time? Or?
Not. So there are studies going on with that right now. Yeah, I mean, and they do cool it. It's, the big thing with asparagus is they like it to be hydro-cooled. So they bring the asparagus in and they will run it under, a hydro cooler essentially is just a fountain of water, conveyor belt. You put the lugs on the conveyor and they dump 34, 33 degree water on it, bring that field temperature down. That helps a lot. Yeah, you put it in the cooler and that helps too. They're working on CA storage, and I guess, as I understand it, you can put asparagus in CA, and that keeps in storage however long, I don't know. But the problem is when you pull it out of CA, it goes south pretty quick.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So there's not, the future there that we'd like. They're still working on it, I do believe. But if we could figure that out, then that would help tremendously. But yeah, asparagus by nature, it's highly perishable. So it's like, pick it, move it, get it going.
What's the average harvest in Michigan, do you know, per year, roughly?
Michigan ends up doing, I want to say it's like 26, 28 million pounds. If I look at last year's number, we ended up doing like 9.5 million pounds of process.
Okay.
So the rest be fresh.
That's a lot of spears.
Yeah.
It's a lot of them to snap off by hand. I guess before we wrap up, I did want to bring up a common misconception, I think, about MACMA and the Apple program is that in the past you had to sign up, obviously, as you described earlier, but when you signed up that you were unable to sell or market your fruit outside of the MACMA-approved processors, and that has changed in the recent years?
Yeah, so I don't know when that changed. Predates me, but yeah, at this point, MACMA, we, like I said before, we can offer suggestions or opinions or what have you. It's the grower's crop. They raise it. It's up to them to do what they want to do and how they want to do it. So MACMA, I guess I should give a kind of a breakdown on that too. Like I said before, it's a co-op, grower-based. And Don Drake, who's the general manager, and I operate at the discretion of our committees. And the committees are elected by the MACMA membership, staggered years. I think 3 for asparagus, 2 for apple. I don't remember what it was. But anyway, the membership elects those committee members. And those committee members, more or less, we have committee meetings probably, I don't know, depending on the division, 3-4 times a year. And at those meetings, we will talk about what the market looks like, what the industry looks like, just kind of go after a handful of different things and assess what the organization can do to kind of help facilitate a strong year for the growers. And the gist of it, surface level, is to come up with a minimum price. And that minimum price, we take input from the processors. We kind of have our feelers out in the fresh world. We look at the size of the crop, what we figure that's going to be. And then, we come up with what we think is a good price and then negotiate with the processors because it's important to hear their opinion too. We don't want to go to the processors and say, hey, this is what you guys are going to have to pay. And, that just doesn't look good. It's not, in order for the growers to be viable, the processors got to be viable and vice versa. Mm-hmm. So, we go to the processors then, and if we can arrive at a price that they see fair, that our committee sees fair, then we'll agree. And then a processor doesn't have to agree to that price. They can go into the year paying whatever they want. And years past, as I understand it, you had to, if you're a MACMA member, you had to sell to the processors that sign on. But no, not anymore. We would be happy to help any grower that's a member, and even not a member too. We don't want to, we're here to serve the industry. There's certain things we can do for our growers that, because they're a member, we certainly prioritize, but we're here to serve the industry as a whole. So, if you have a crop and you want to sign on to MACMA, you can certainly send to a processor that doesn't sign on. That's fine. If you're okay with it, whatever they're paying, that's totally fine. We can't tell a grower what to do. But yeah, we are certainly here to help to any capacity. A big portion of what we do too is, when times get tight and if we see oversupply coming, we will work with USDA. That's turned into a big facet of kind of some of the market alleviation that we can help with in terms of requesting what they call Section 32 purchases, which is a bonus buy. USDA, all it is really is myself or Dawn will communicate to them, say, hey, we'd like you to purchase, X amount $1 million of processed product from growers, and if they agree to it, then at that point, USDA will put out a solicitation for the processors. They can bid on it, and then whichever processor wins the bid gets the business, and then USDA will pay for it. And that alleviates a lot of market pressure just because it brings a lot of crop out of the marketplace. So the market can stabilize off a little bit. So that's been really a pretty good help in recent years. I see more of that coming with, the size of what I anticipate we're going to have for apple crops. We've seen it, in asparagus too, because we've still got a lot of asparagus out there, and it's been a tough market the past few years. So that's a big portion of what we've been doing. And then the sales desk too. I feel like we don't have that in asparagus, but in the apple world, we maintain a sales desk. And I alluded to that earlier with some of my role. We have a pretty good relationship with processors in New York, Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, that we will send fruit to. If we get into a spot here and there's oversupply, or maybe the price is, they pay more for it out of state. We've seen that before too. Well, we'll send a truck to the farm and dump apples off or whatever, and off they go. And this year we've sent, since probably October, I think we've sent north of 200 loads out. I don't know what that number is at, but so that's been a pretty big facet of what we've been doing here lately too. I guess I'm kind of going down a rabbit trail there, but by and large, we're here to help the grower. We're never here to tell a grower what to do or how to do it.
Nice.
And before we wrap up, I got a couple more questions. If anyone else
Go
has
ahead.
any more they want to throw in, what's the best advice you've ever received in agriculture?
Best advice I've ever received in agriculture. So here's some advice, and I guess the best advice, bar none, was you can't do a good job with bad tools. At the time, I took that to mean like shop tools or like tillage tools or whatever.
Right.
But now, as I've gotten older and thought about it and reflected on it, I as that person gave it to me, that's not just tools. That's like public speaking has been one for me. I'm not a big public speaker, so that's a tool I'm trying to refine to do a better job of communicating, relationships. Any of these things, that's everything that you use is a tool. And in order to be successful at what it is you want to do, you've got to refine your skills, be good at what you're doing, do it, to the best of your ability, and then there in turn you'll be able to see some success. So I think that's
nice.
But and I can apply that to anything. But you can't do a good job with bad tools.
I love that.
It's almost like one of my favorites is only the poorest of workmen blame their tools.
I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, that one I've been hearing for years.
There's a lot of them. One of the ones
So
too
many.
is buy land. That's the only thing I'm not making any more of anymore. Buy land.
Right.
It's hard to do, but if you can do it, do it. For goodness sakes. And everyone's favorite. There's always next year.
Always.
And ag, that's it.
That's the farmer
next
motto.
year will be better. There's always next year.
Yeah, we talked about that with Nikki. Like farmers, like she said, the ultimate optimistic people. It's just every year you could have almost lost your farm. Next year, we're gonna kill it. Next
Kill
year.
it this year.
You pull that tractor out of the barn and you're just like a kid on the playground again. Any final message that you want to leave to the specialty crop listeners out there?
I guess I would just say, MACMA's here to help. We help, obviously, our members, but we're here to help the industry as a whole. MACMA, it's Dawn and myself, and it's just the two of us, and we try to see who we can see, talk to who we can talk to, but inevitably, we can't talk to everybody. There's, I think, probably 400 or 500 MACMA members in the state. So, if you have questions, give us a call. We'd be happy to talk to you about anything and everything. We have a Facebook page. I need to do a better job, I guess, of updating that because I don't, but I'm on there as often as I can be trying to give updates. And I just encourage you to follow what we do and how we do it because we are here to represent the industry as a whole. Sometimes I feel like it gets lumped into just helping MACMA members, but no, it's an industry first organization. That's kind of how we want to be.
If somebody wanted to get signed up with MACMA, how would they reach out to start that process?
Yeah, you can get a hold of me. If you don't have my number or don't know someone that has my number, hop on the Facebook page. We have a website too through Michigan Farm Bureau. If you didn't used to be this way, but just go to Google and just type in MACMA, and it'll take you to the Facebook page or to the website. You can get a hold of us on there. If you want to sign on, just a signature is really all we need. At that point, what happens if you sign on is MACMA as an organization, we take 2% of whatever you send process that given year, and that 2%, we don't have much overhead. Just myself and Dawn, and we have our vehicles. We work from home, so there's not a whole lot. So we take the 2%, and we actually have a cash patronage program. I think the numbers are since 2012, we've returned like $1.8 million to our growers. So I've had growers say it ends up being more like a 1%. I can't necessarily say that because I don't know, but I mean, it's by the time that cash patronage kicks in, it's not really a full 2%. But that's all you really got to do. Every year we will send a list of MACMA members to the processors, and those processors then take that 2% out and divert that our way. So you as a grower, there's really nothing else you
don't
have
even
to
do
after
anything.
that. Nope.
Well, I will get the links, obviously, to the Facebook page. I'll put the MACMA website down, and that way anyone that's interested, that's listening, can click on those in the description of whatever platform you're listening on. But if anybody doesn't have anything else,
No.
Thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
You
thanks.
did
It was
fantastic.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys. It was a blast.
Yeah.
Yep, this is available on Spotify, Apple Podcast. I forgot to mention, it's on Acres TV now. So we got that to add on. TikTok for some clips. And did I say Spotify yet?
No Google Cast yet, eh?
No,
I don't know
never.
about that. Never. We're big iPhone folks except for Steve.
Yeah.
All right, guys, this has been episode
20.
20 of the Specialty Cropcast. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, guys.